the spectrum of human consciousness slash awareness. And this part corresponds to our biological and evolutionary development as life forms, where we basically start off and have the consciousness of a bacteria and have from bacteria to Buddha. And that's really the journey of being human, is the capacity to go from bacteria to Buddha. So why do I say bacteria? Well, zoom into this corner. If you take a look at a sperm cell is basically a flagellated chemotaxic bacterium. And what I mean by that is that the sperm cell has a tail, which is the flagella, and it has a nose. It has the capacity to sniff out and seek out and drive its tail to move towards the egg. Now, the egg is an egg cell, like any other egg cell. I prefer them poached or fried. Scrambled is okay. But our egg cells are very, very tiny. And it's the fusion of this bacteria-sized sperm cell, because there's so little, and the fusion of this with the egg cell. Now, the egg cell is aware and waiting of the moment that the sperm, the head of the sperm, penetrates the outer layer, because as soon as it does, it knows it, and there's almost like an explosion that happens, and it blocks off any other sperm from getting in. So this is basically you, me, all of us, right? A single cell eukaryotic organism. So we've made the jump from being a prokaryote, like a bacterium, to being a eukaryote. So we have a cell nucleus, we have mitochondria, we have all the good stuff that all the eukaryotes have. Then we immediately start developing into a blob, and not much going on there, except that the blob, the cells in the blob, reach a point where there's basically 3 layers of cells in the blob. There's the outer layer, which are in contact with the outside. In this case, this is the within the reproductive system of the woman. Then there's a middle layer that is only in contact with other cells. And then there's a third layer, which forms a little hole, which has contact with an inner space. And the cells are aware of the fact that they are either outer layer cells, middle layer cells, or inner layer cells. That awareness is there. And we basically start taking the shape of something that resembles a sea sponge. And yes, that's right, that's your mouth, and it is also your anus. Very good. So we keep developing and we grow into a tube, and basically by the time week 8 comes by, we're basically a worm. And we're not actually worms, but because we are known as notochords. Now, a notochord is a very interesting thing. It's a parallel, so there's the tube here of our digestive system. So now your anus is on the other side of your mouth. And then there's another parallel tube that goes along it with nerve cells, nerve ganglia, nerve cells. And these nerve cells will grow together into a bunch of knots. That's why it's called a notochord. And they're basically nerve ganglia. And these are going to become your spinal cord and your brain, and, well, basically what I'm going to call a bunch of mini brains or intelligence centers, and in the East they'll call them chakras. They're going to correspond to different parts of your body. On one end, there's the anus, which has the intelligence of being able to, well, know when to go to the bathroom and when not to go to the bathroom. And usually by the time you're 2 years old, you figure out how to do that. There's the whole area around sex, the whole area around your gut and digestion, fight and flight. There's the center of you as a body, and this has a significance that'll come in later. Then there's the chest area, which is going to basically feed the nerves that go into the heart and the lungs. Then there's an entire area for your throat chakra, that allows you to, why is it your mouth sometimes says things without your brain having a chance to censor it? And then there's the actual brain that develops. So we have many different brains, many different intelligence centers. From there, that's around week 8. From there, we as embryos, our development continues until we sort of evolve into a fish. And here we have gill slits, there's a brain on one side, and we start having these little stubs, these little fins that start coming out. And then we evolve to, well, the complexity. We have a fetus, an embryo, which looks kind of like a lizard. And then we evolve to a mammal, nice, happy, smiling, big-headed mammal. Of those, and we lose our tail at some point, somewhere between here and here, we lose our tail. And then we evolve into primates, and then what is known as hominin, and this is where the genus Homo comes from. Now, the important thing to understand is that we're born at this point, 9 months later. We've gone from being basically a seeking sperm cell to a human baby, but we're born so underdeveloped that we actually have the nervous system, the capacity of a small reptile. And I put here baby turtle because I had these beautiful, I've had turtles before, little Japanese painted turtles. And when you get them when they're tiny little babies, when they first hatch, they're so little, and all they do is flight. They run away, run away, run away, run away. And then they reach a certain size by like week 3 or something like that. They've gotten big enough that they suddenly turn on you and they attack and they fight. And this corresponds to age 6 months in a human. So by the time we're 6 months old as humans, we're at the same level of consciousness as like a 3-week-old turtle, right? So we keep going in our development, and eventually we get to the point where about 3 years old, and now we have the same sense of self-awareness and consciousness as a 1-day-old chimp. Now, somewhere around the age of 5, 6, or 7, and I'll talk about that later, we get to a point where we excel chimps, and this is where we actually have the capacity to become human animals, and that's the right way to look at us biologically is that we're human animals, and when we reach puberty, at this point, all of our brains, all of the intelligence centers are on. So the intelligence center at the other end of the spinal column, the sex center, is now fully developed. So by the time we reach puberty, all of our brains are physiologically developed. Now, psychologically, that may not be the case, but physiologically we're developed. And then from there, somewhere around 12 to 14, we go through the journey of life. And then we reach a point where we have the potential to become Buddhas. Now, we are unconscious, and everything that's happening with us is happening purely unconsciously until somewhere around the age of 5 or 6. And then from then on, we can say that we're conscious, 5, 6, 7. This is right at the delineation between us and other primates, so chimpanzees, apes, that demonstrate a certain level of consciousness. They're capable of looking at a mirror and identifying themselves. They can actually see pictures of themselves on a videotape and identify themselves. So that there's definitely a higher level of consciousness and awareness as far as the animal is concerned. We are sentient. All life is sentient, as I mentioned before. And I'm going to call this stage, this whole area of being conscious or of consciousness, I prefer to label it as semi-conscious, because we're a combination of, there's a certain amount of conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. I've put in the fact that we're about 90% unconscious, and subconscious, we're about 9% functioning from our subconscious. And then our consciousness is functioning at about 1%, actually a little less than 1%. And we do have a super conscious moments. We have moments of, if we're healthy and we're raised properly, we're going to have sparks of creativity and intuition. And everyone I meet, when I ask them, do you ever have a flash of creativity and intuition? They say, yeah, it happens sometimes. I wish it could happen more often, or I don't know how it happens, but yeah, it can happen. Of course, yeah, I have those. And I'm going to call those moments of super consciousness, because those are the moments that we're functioning intuitively. And this is happening up here. Now, the reality of what's happening today with modern humans is that less than 1% of the people that I talk to are basically ever aware of being in a state of no mind. Like 99% of people are not aware of moments when they're in no mind. And most people are basically 99% unconscious, and the remaining 1% is basically mostly subconscious and 0.1% consciousness. Now, being conscious at 0.1% to 1%, well, animals stop here. Like, they don't get it. Like, maybe for a chimpanzee, a gorilla, they'll have a flash of consciousness, right? They're functioning mostly, well, as children unconsciously, as kids unconsciously, and then as adults they've learned some behaviors, but this is all happening within the realm of the unconscious. And then they have flashes of consciousness, flashes of being able to look at themselves and recognize themselves, and maybe have a flash of what happens next. But it's not sustainable. We humans are the only one that have the nervous system with the capacity of having the types of memories and our experiences, our awareness, our experiences of reality, that we can record them. So we're functioning instinctively throughout this entire range, mostly instinctively, and those instincts, of course, depend on they're part of the body. So a healthy body that is out in nature and hunting and fishing and catching and running and playing and mating and doing all the fun things that we human animals can do. This is all happening instinctively. Our instincts are going to be really good. While somebody that just sits in front of a TV screen, eats junk food, they're not going to, their instincts are going to be functioning very, very low quality. Same with their intuition. Yeah? So we move up to the capacity to, at some point, somewhere after puberty, so somewhere between the age of 14 to 140, and there's humans today that should be able to make it to 140, we have the capacity to become aware of the intelligence that's beyond our mind and become super conscious. And this is what actually defines us as a human being. We're not supposed to call ourselves human beings until we can function from a state of being. Before that, we're human animals. And what defines us, like, scientifically, our scientific name is Homo sapiens sapiens, right? So we're the hominin, the primate, the monkey, the great ape, that is sapient, that's aware, and that's aware of its awareness. But that's still in the realm of unconsciousness. That's still a human animal. The transition that we're a transition species, is from being an animal to being a being. An animal, anima, means animated matter. There's no sense, well, there's a sense of self, but there's no, how to say it, there's no soul. There's no deeper connection beyond that we can be aware of. We're obviously always connected. We're never disconnected from reality. We're always in the universe, but there is a higher sense that we humans can attain to, and we get glimpses of it, and that's why we call ourselves human beings. But the reality is that we're a transition species that is suffering because we're stuck in a semi-conscious state, and we're supposed to become super conscious. We either function as happy, healthy human animals, like Aboriginal tribes all around the world, and there's some hidden tribes in the Amazon and Papua New Guinea, who knows, right? In certain places where we're functioning as beautiful human animals in balance with our environment, and this is not a derogatory term in any way, because the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of humans are functioning as sub-animals. We're sick and destroying ourselves in our environment, and there aren't any animals that are that sick, retarded, or stupid as humans. And the reason for this is because of our minds. We have the capacity, our consciousness, we have the capacity to not just be aware, know that we're aware, know that others are aware, and we do have a step up from animals that are not capable of being aware of what they are. A dog is a dog is a dog, a rose is a rose is a rose, and they're never going to change. There's nothing that can happen. But a human being, a Homo sapiens, has the capacity to become a human being. We have the capacity to transition from human animal to human being. So what else is known about this? Well, in our development, right, it turns out that our minds only develop till we reach puberty. And studies have shown that boys tend to develop to around the age of 12, and then our minds stop developing, the minds that are given to us as children. And girls to the age of 14, which is usually why girls are a little more mature and ahead of the boys.